The year is 2002. The Los Angeles Lakers have just beat the New Jersey Nets to win the NBA Finals for the third year in a row. There may or may not have been some controversy surrounding how they got to the finals, but regardless, they still won it all. Kobe and Shaq were now NBA legends, and the Lakers accomplished a feat that most dynasties can only dream of, the Three-Peat. Most franchises can't even say they've won 3 championships total. For a team to win 3 championships in a row, it cements them as being a dynasty of their time, and the players and coaches as some of the best to ever do it. Obviously, it's very difficult to do. The Los Angeles Lakers were the last team to do it, not just in the NBA, but across all of the 4 leagues. Since then, there have been many great teams who have gone back-to-back, with players and coaches that are recognized as some of the greatest in their sports, but none of them have been able to win their 3rd championship in a row. It probably doesn't surprise anyone that Tom Brady and the New England Patriots almost completed the Three-Peat. The legend of Tom Brady had already begun after the Patriots upset the St. Louis Rams in Super Bowl 36. The start of the team's Three-Peat would begin 2 seasons later. In Super Bowl 38, Tom Brady led a late drive in the 4th quarter to get the Patriots in scoring position, and Adam Vinatieri would kick in the game-winning field goal. The next season, their team continued their greatness, winning 14 games and easily making it back to the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles. It was a close game, but the Patriots pulled out the win, some of it due to Eagles quarterback Donovan McNabb deciding it would be a great time to throw 3 interceptions. The Patriots had just won 2 Super Bowls in a row. There was no reason that they couldn't win it the next year. Well, that was the case at first. Going into the 2005 season, Pro Bowl linebacker Teddy Bruschi had suffered a minor stroke. He miraculously was able to return to playing in the middle of the season, but many other players were not as lucky. New England was hit with the injury bug. Many key players from their team suffered season-ending injuries, and the Patriots were constantly starting different players. New England struggled throughout the first half of the season, alternating between winning and losing their first 9 games. The team went on a nice run to end the season, and even though they only won 10 games, they were able to win their division and get back to the playoffs as the 4th seed. It was not the most impressive season for a team that had just won the Super Bowl twice in a row, but it didn't matter. The Patriots still made it back to the playoffs. New England had no trouble in the wildcard game against Jacksonville, and they were ready to beat the Denver Broncos in the divisional round. But the injuries would catch up to the Patriots. New England had 5 turnovers throughout the game, and their chance to three-peat was over. You can't give New England too much grief for failing the Three-Peat. No team has ever won 3 Super Bowls in a row, and this loss did not stop the Patriots from winning. They would go on to win 3 more Super Bowls with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and their dynasty is recognized as the greatest in the NFL's history. Injuries were a big factor in keeping New England from winning 3 in a row. You'll see that be a common factor for most of the teams that could not three-peat. It's something that teams just can't plan for. But sometimes, when greatness is on the line, some injured players just have to keep playing. It took the Lakers practically no time at all for them to have another chance at achieving a three-peat. The next couple of years after their three-peat were odd. Shaq and Kobe had a weird beef that caused Shaq to be traded to the Miami Heat. Rumors of Kobe wanting to be traded began to spread after the team struggled for a few seasons. But all it took for Los Angeles to be back to contending for the finals was a trade for Paul Gasol. With other solid players on the roster, things changed immediately for the team. The Lakers went from losing in the first round to being back in the finals. Even though they did lose the finals that year to the Boston Celtics, Los Angeles was not going to be slowed down. The next season, the team made it back to the top of the league, winning 65 games and easily winning the finals against the Orlando Magic. With Kobe and Paul, nothing was going to stop them. In the 2010 season, Los Angeles won 57 games, made it back to the finals, and got their revenge against Boston. Kobe Bryant was now a 5-time NBA champion, and he had a chance to match Michael Jordan and complete a three-peat for the 2nd time in his career. Not much changed in 2011. The Lakers won 57 games again, and as the 2 seed in the playoffs, they had another good chance to win it all. Their opponent in the first round was not going to be a challenge, or that at least was the plan. In Game 4 of their first round matchup against the New Orleans Hornets, Kobe Bryant sprained his ankle. It wasn't too much of an issue for the team in the first round. The Lakers would win the series in 6 games, and Kobe was still able to perform at a high enough level. But their next opponent was going to be much more difficult. The Dallas Mavericks were not going to be a pushover. The Lakers needed Kobe to play well in order to have any chance of winning the series. But Kobe could not play well enough through his ankle injury, and the Mavs quickly swept the Lakers out of a three-peat. The Los Angeles Lakers were a good team. They had a great chance of winning the finals again. But the storyline quickly switched from their chance of three-peating to the impressive run that the Mavericks had to win the finals that season. Dirk Nowitzki cemented his legacy in Dallas forever after winning that championship. And for the team that the Mavericks had just beat in the finals, their championship window was just getting started. When you're the best player in the NBA, any team that you join instantly becomes a contender to win the finals. LeBron James and Chris Bosh joining Dwayne Wade in Miami gave the Heat their big three. Practically everyone was expecting them to win the finals, and especially LeBron. In front of a live crowd, LeBron said that the Heat would win the finals not once, not twice, but 7 times. That's a lot to promise, and obviously he was kind of exaggerating. But for a team that good, was it even much of a stretch? LeBron was already a 2-time MVP. Dwayne Wade had already won a championship. Chris Bosh was a 5-time All-Star. All of them were proven stars in the league, so for all of them to be on the same team, yeah, why wouldn't they win a bunch of championships? In their first season together, Miami cruised their way to the NBA Finals. It was their time to win their first out of 7 championships, just like LeBron promised. All they had to do was beat the Dallas Mavericks, a team that they were heavily favored to beat. They lost. Okay, well, that promise can wait another year. It's not like the Heat were going to get worse. The 2012 NBA season saw some setbacks, not for Miami, but for the entire league. A lockout forced the season to be cut to 66 games, which was not a problem at all for the Heat. It wasn't as easy for them to return to the finals, but when they made it back, Miami quickly defeated a young Oklahoma City Thunder team. The Heat were still great in the 2013 season, but they found themselves in the finals down 3-2 against the San Antonio Spurs. They nearly lost Game 6, but instead, this happened. Miami clawed back to win the series and had now won back-to-back championships. Nothing was stopping them from achieving the three-peat. The Heat did not have much trouble winning the Eastern Conference and making it back to the finals. This time, it was a rematch. The Spurs wanted redemption. The Heat wanted a three-peat. In 5 games, it was settled, with San Antonio coming out on top. The Heat's championship window would quickly close. In the offseason, LeBron announced that he would return to Cleveland to help the Cavs win a championship. Losing LeBron basically meant that it was over. Miami began losing a lot more, and their window to win championships was effectively shut. Even if they didn't three-peat, the Miami Heat were still a juggernaut of the league. And throughout the 2010s, there was another team who ruled their league for a few years. The Pittsburgh Penguins made it back to the top of the NHL in 2009. After losing to the Detroit Red Wings in the Stanley Cup final the season before, the Penguins got their redemption and won their first Stanley Cup since 1992. The next few years saw a lot of heartbreak for the team. 3 of the next 6 seasons had Pittsburgh losing a Game 7 in the playoffs. In 2013, the Penguins made it back to the conference finals, but were swept by the Boston Bruins. If Pittsburgh had not won the Stanley Cup a few seasons earlier, that stretch of losing would have felt much more heartbreaking. But do you want to know how you can make up for the heartbreaking losses? Winning. Things turned back around in 2016. The Penguins' run to the Stanley Cup was full of tense moments. They won the conference semifinals against the Washington Capitals in 6 games, winning the series in dramatic fashion. The pressure only mounted in the conference finals against the Tampa Bay Lightning, in which Pittsburgh narrowly beat Tampa to make it back to the final. The Penguins would battle against the San Jose Sharks for 6 games, and Pittsburgh held on to win the Stanley Cup. Defending their title was not easy. Pittsburgh made it back to the playoffs, but found themselves in another tough series against the Capitals, with this series going to 7 games. But thanks to a 29-save performance from goalie Marc-Andre Fleury, the Penguins shut out the Capitals and won the series. In the conference finals, Pittsburgh found themselves in another Game 7, this time against the Ottawa Senators. Both teams found themselves playing to win a double overtime game with the chance of making it to the final on the line. For Pittsburgh, the magic wasn't done. Chris Kunitz scored the series-winning goal to send the Penguins back to the final. Pittsburgh won the series in 6 games and cemented themselves as back-to-back champions. Given all the close series that Pittsburgh was in, it's almost a miracle that they were even able to win the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row. If they found themselves in another tight series again, would the Penguins be able to keep winning? Well, in the 2018 season, it seemed at first that would be the case. Pittsburgh won 47 games and won a tight 6-game series against the Philadelphia Flyers in the first round of the playoffs. The Penguins would again face the Capitals in the semifinals, but this time it was Washington's turn to have their shining moment. Pittsburgh lost the series to Washington, and just like that, their chance to three-peat was over. Washington went on to win the Stanley Cup final that season, and the Penguins were left wondering what could have happened if they had won the series. But I guess that's the story with all of these teams. What if the Patriots didn't turn the ball over 5 times against the Broncos? What if Kobe didn't have to play through an ankle injury? And for this next team, there are a lot of what-ifs that kept them from three-peating. The 2016 season was an embarrassing ending to one of the best seasons for any NBA team ever. The Golden State Warriors broke the NBA record for wins in that season, surpassing the 96 Bulls with 73 wins. Steph Curry was historic and got voted as the unanimous MVP. The team made it back to the finals and only needed to win one more game to repeat as champions. Everything was set for them to complete the greatest season ever for an NBA team, but instead, Golden State lost the series in embarrassing fashion. What would the Warriors do after that horrible loss? It's not like they would get, one of the best players in the league to join their team, making them practically unstoppable for any other team to beat. Kevin Durant joining the Warriors made the NBA feel like a chore to watch. Everyone just kind of accepted that Golden State was going to win the finals. I don't blame KD for going to Golden State. People view NBA players who haven't won a championship much differently than players who have. Going to Golden State would change his legacy forever. And I don't even really blame Golden State for signing him, because they were just trying to be the best team that they could be. But man, was it hard to be excited about watching the NBA during this time. The first season with Kevin Durant was what everyone expected for the Warriors. Golden State won 67 games during the regular season and lost only 1 game in the playoffs, as they inevitably won the finals again. But in 2018, things took a small step back for the Warriors. They were not the best team in the league. The Houston Rockets finished with a better record than Golden State, as James Harden had a phenomenal season that saw him win MVP. With the guidance of Chris Paul, Houston had a chance to be the team that beat the Warriors. Both teams would face off in the 2018 Western Conference Finals. Golden State was on the brink of elimination, going down in the series 3-2, but Chris Paul would suffer a hamstring injury, and he would miss the last 2 games of the series. But Houston was still a good team. They could beat the Warriors. As long as they didn't do something like miss 27 3-pointers in a row, they should have a chance. Golden State would go on to win the series, and they would eventually sweep the Cavaliers in the finals, repeating as champions. The 2019 season was more of the same. The Warriors won 57 games, were the 1 seed in the playoffs, and made it back to the finals with really no trouble. This time, instead of playing the Cavs again, Golden State would play the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors were not going to be an easy team to beat, but again, it's the Warriors. They were gonna three-peat, and every NBA fan was gonna lose their mind. But that's not what happened. Instead, the Warriors were hit with something no team can overcome: injuries. Earlier in their playoff run, KD got injured against the Houston Rockets, and he missed the entire Western Conference Finals and most of the finals. He would return to the finals in Game 5, but he would tear his Achilles in that game, which was an injury that nearly ended his career. But that wasn't all. Klay Thompson was another big piece for the team. After a hard foul in Game 6, Klay would tear his ACL. With 2 key players injured, there wasn't much Golden State could do to beat the Raptors. Warriors fans will tell you they would have won the finals that season if KD and Klay didn't get injured. Warriors haters will tell you that their dynasty only happened because of injuries that happened to other teams. We could spend hours playing this what-if game, but at the end of the day, the Warriors were a dynasty that few teams could beat, and I hope I never have to see anything like it again. COVID was a weird time for sports. No fans were at the games, seasons were shortened, and for the NHL, this was no different. The NHL also expanded the playoffs to include 24 teams. None of this really affected the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa finished as the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, so they were given a bye to the first round. But things immediately became difficult for the Lightning. Their first playoff game saw Tampa narrowly beat the Columbus Blue Jackets in a 5-overtime thriller. They would eventually win the series in another overtime game. The semifinals were very similar. The Lightning beat the Boston Bruins in 5 games, but it took them another overtime goal for them to win the series. Next was the conference finals against the New York Islanders. I want you to guess how you think that series ended. With all of that drama, Tampa now found themselves playing for the Stanley Cup against the Dallas Stars. This time, it would not take another overtime goal to win a series. Tampa won the Stanley Cup in 6 games in one of the weirdest seasons that the NHL has ever seen. The Lightning were now champions, but could they go back to back? Yes, obviously they did, or I wouldn't be talking about them. Tampa didn't have the greatest record, but it was still enough for them to make it back to the playoffs. They wouldn't have to play a bunch of overtime games this time. Instead, they found themselves in close battles, and they did just enough to win Game 7 of the conference finals against the Islanders. Back in the final, they pretty decisively beat the Montreal Canadiens to win their second Stanley Cup in a row. The 2022 season was their chance to make history and become the first team in nearly 40 years to three-peat in the NHL. After making it back to the playoffs, the team was in another tight series in the first round against the Toronto Maple Leafs. But Toronto was playing in a Game 7, which basically means Tampa was winning no matter what. The Lightning would then sweep the Florida Panthers in the semifinals, and after losing the first 2 games in the conference finals, they would win the next 4 against the New York Rangers to make it back to the final. This time against the Colorado Avalanche. But for all the heartbreak the Lightning gave to other teams, it was their turn to feel pain. Losing an overtime game is bad enough, but losing the next game by 7 goals doesn't exactly bring a lot of confidence in winning the final. Tampa was able to turn right back around and crush Colorado in Game 3, but the Avalanche would give them more heartbreak in Game 4. The knockout punch was delivered 2 games later, as Colorado wanted to close Game 6 and killed Tampa's chance at a three-peat. Tampa's playoff success has not been seen since losing that Stanley Cup final. They've made the playoffs each time since, but they haven't been able to win another series. Again, you don't need to feel too bad for them. Any team that wins back-to-back championships is doing fine, and they don't need to be pitied by any other fans. And for this last team, I really hope you don't feel any pity towards them. I used to like the Chiefs. It was such a relief when a team not named the New England Patriots made the Super Bowl. When the Chiefs won Super Bowl 54 against the San Francisco 49ers, it felt like the league was wide open for a bunch of different teams to start winning. Little did I know that Kansas City would only take New England's place. The next couple of years didn't see the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, but they still had great seasons with deep playoff runs. In 2022, Kansas City won 14 games and was the top seed in the playoffs. Their first game would be against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who put up a good fight, but made too many mistakes against the Chiefs. In the AFC Championship, the Chiefs would play the Cincinnati Bengals in a rematch from the year before. This time, Kansas City got their revenge. Kansas City was back in the Super Bowl, which was to the surprise of basically no one. The Super Bowl game against the Eagles was about everything a fan could ask for. It was a close game that went down to the wire, but a controversial holding call on the Eagles set up the Chiefs to kick the game-winning field goal, and Kansas City won the Super Bowl. The next season was where things got weird. The team overall took a step back. Kansas City won only 11 games, but that was still enough for them to win their division and make it back to the playoffs as the 3 seed. Their wildcard game was against the Miami Dolphins, who they beat without any problem. But after that, it got much tougher. The Buffalo Bills were looking to finally beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, but the Bills made too many mistakes that allowed the Chiefs to steal the win. The story was the same in the AFC Championship against the Ravens, who had too many turnovers and ultimately helped the Chiefs make it back to the Super Bowl. For all the distractions that surrounded Kansas City that season, none of it mattered. The Chiefs would go on to win another Super Bowl against the 49ers in an overtime thriller that ended with Patrick Mahomes throwing for a game-winning touchdown. It felt inevitable. There was no reason they wouldn't win the Super Bowl again and complete the three-peat. Everyone pretty much accepted this. The 2024 season was frustrating. For almost every game, the Chiefs were in close games, but won each one practically every single time. They finished the season 15-2 and could have maybe won 16 games if they decided to play their starters in the last game of the regular season. Back in the playoffs, everyone was expecting the same thing. The Chiefs are making it to the Super Bowl. The Houston Texans were never going to upset Kansas City. And in the AFC Championship against the Buffalo Bills? Come on, we all knew who was going to win, even if it was another close game. So back they were in the Super Bowl, facing the Eagles once again. The Eagles were a great team, and they were definitely going to give the Chiefs everything they had, but we had already seen this before, so no one expected them to actually beat Kansas City. Well, they did, and it wasn't really close. It felt so weird watching this game. Even as the Chiefs continued to make mistakes, I kept telling myself that they would eventually come back and beat them, but the comeback never happened. Philly just kept piling it on. And just like that, Kansas City's chance to three-peat was over. That Super Bowl shocked me, not necessarily due to the Eagles winning, they were a great team, but more in the fact that the Chiefs lost. When they made it to the Super Bowl again, most people just assumed that they would three-peat, but they didn't. And if the Kansas City Chiefs couldn't, I feel like we might not ever see a team three-peat again. Which leads me to the question. You may have noticed that no MLB teams were featured in this video. Ever since the Yankees completed their three-peat in the late 90s and early 2000s, no MLB team has won back-to-back championships. The closest team to complete a three-peat was the San Francisco Giants, who won the World Series 3 times in 5 years, but they never won twice in a row. Baseball just isn't a sport that's easy to win continuously, so it's very unlikely we'll see another team three-peat in the majors. I didn't even talk about college sports, which is a whole entire thing on its own. There's been a bunch of different teams across college sports that have gone back to back without being able to complete a three-peat. Right now, it's clear that the Florida Panthers have the best chance of being the next team to three-peat. In the middle of me making this video, the Panthers won the Stanley Cup final against the Edmonton Oilers. They are among the betting favorites to win it next year, and they've already taken steps to make sure that they have the best chance to do so. But I have my doubts. Florida is a great team, and I expect them to be in the mix to win the Cup next year. But there's also a good chance that they become the next team on this list. Just another team who ultimately fell short of achieving the three-peat.